Heron Veruto, the black-haired man, warns that the castle laws must be read quickly to survive.
Little purple-haired Viola awakens from a strange dream, unsettled by a voice threatening her life. Heron's sharp features remind the reader of a knife, though they pity Viola's future loneliness. The story originates from the purple book titled The Shadow of Veruto, the narrator's favorite novel.
Winter Castle is introduced as the snowy seat of power for the Duke Veruto family.
The Iron Blood Duke's family is described as heartless, even encouraging violence between brothers.
Adopted by Heron, the talented Viola eventually rises to become the ruler of the Veruto estate. Despite her successful reign, adult Viola is shown surrounded by roses, feeling empty and lonely.
Sitting upon her tall throne, Viola reflects on pushing aside the legitimate heirs to rule. In a dark silhouette, she asks if she was ever truly considered family during her life.
A somber image of Viola reveals her ultimate despair as her life draws toward an end. She laments that while she gained the power she sought, she lost everything else in return.
The narrator wishes they could give the character a happy ending with others this time.
A close-up of lace and fabric emphasizes the sad feeling lingering after the story's conclusion.
A decorative frame encourages leading a successful life that will be envied by everyone. The scene shifts to the first day Heron brought the child Viola to the Winter Castle. Standing in the Grand Hall, the small girl begins the prologue of her new life.
Reincarnated as Viola, the former reader Han Aren vows to change the character's tragic fate.
Viola observes her surroundings, recalling the specific details of the book she once read.
She realizes Heron only adopted her because he saw her natural potential as a killer.
Seeing the shadows of other children, she understands her role was to be a competitive stimulant.
The young girl turns away, preparing herself for the dangerous path that lies ahead.
Viola speaks out, acknowledging the infamous reputation of the ruthless family she has just joined.
She boldly states that within this castle, everything is decided and proven by one's ability.
Duke Heron is taken aback by the child's blunt and perceptive understanding of his world.
Heron stares at the small girl, his expression shifting as he considers her unexpected insight.
The gray-haired man standing behind the Duke watches the little princess with a silent gaze.
Viola identifies the man as the butler Carlton, recognizing the prominent scar across his face. Carlton gives her a stern, sharp look that wordlessly commands her to stop being rude. Internally, Han Aren panics while trying to keep her composure in front of the handsome Duke.
Framed by flowers, Viola beams and asks Heron if he is going to be her father.
With a chilling smile and glowing eyes, Viola claims she knows the family better than anyone.
She asserts that she needs the power to make her own choices regarding her future father. Heron remains quiet, staring at the girl as she challenges his authority with quiet confidence.
Viola points a finger at the Duke, questioning why he acts without giving her a choice. Heron finally relents, telling the girl that he will listen to her from now on.
The Duke asks the final critical question: does she truly want to be his daughter?
Viola smiles brightly and accepts the proposal, stating that she likes the idea very much. She secretly thinks he is incredibly handsome, excited to be with her favorite novel character.
Viola reminds him that becoming father and daughter was her choice, not just his decision.
Heron closes his eyes with a sigh, amused and intrigued by the girl's defiant spirit. A sharp, dark smirk appears on the Duke's face as he finds her behavior interesting. Viola begins to walk away, but her confidence is shaken by a sudden, heavy pressure. Wow, she thinks, noticing the atmosphere change as her legs begin to tremble.
A cold chill suddenly washes over her, making the girl gasp in genuine fear.
Terrified, Viola feels like her body might rip apart under the weight of his murderous aura. Looking at her own small feet, she reflects on her long-held dream of having a family. She expresses a silent wish that he could learn to love her as his own daughter. Looking up with hope, She begs him to be a real father to her this time. The consciousness begins to stir, deciding it is time to leave the depths of a long sleep. Viola gasps as she suddenly awakens, while the black-haired man looms close by with an intense presence. Heron encourages the girl to survive with all her might, claiming he is not her destined killer. The dream feels disturbingly vivid, causing a wave of confusion as the boundaries of reality begin to blur. Deep in thought at his desk, Heron recalls the chilling moment he first discovered the mysterious child. A haunting memory reveals the young, purple-haired girl sitting in the shadows, stained with blood and holding glass. With a cold gaze, the child grips a blood-slicked shard, her potential for violence clear even at her age. Heron muses that the girl likely protected herself by stabbing a merchant who attempted to kidnap her. He marvels at the fact that an untrained 7-year-old child could commit such a ruthless act of defense. The girl is described as a harbinger of doom, a child seemingly born under the ill-fated star of death. Observing the black-haired man's calm demeanor, Carlton notes that the Duke appears to be in a pleasant mood. Heron agrees that the recent events were entertaining, while Carlton stands by, seeking a deeper explanation of his words. Carlton suggests the girl's small stature and slow growth might be the reason for her apparent confusion regarding her age. The Duke disagrees, noting that her sophisticated behavior feels entirely unnatural for a child, sparking further intrigue and debate. The gray-haired butler considers the possibility that the girl's outward confidence was merely a desperate, awkward facade of bravery. Framed by roses and thorns, Viola displays a mental fortitude strong enough to suppress even the most paralyzing fears. Heron remains observant at his desk, his sharp eyes missing nothing as he evaluates the girl's true potential. Clad in his formal vest, the Duke ponders the strange anomaly the girl has become within his cold, iron house. Surrounded by a floral aura, the purple-haired girl looks up with wide, innocent eyes that hide her internal struggle. Heron calls out to Carlton, who immediately acknowledges the Duke as they continue their private discussion about the child. The Duke asks for a blunt assessment of the girl's survival chances within the cutthroat environment of the estate. Viola bites her finger nervously, wondering why she still cannot escape this world that feels like an endless dream. Panic begins to set in as the realization dawns that she is unable to wake from this strange existence. 2 days have passed without relief, leading her to fear that her vivid dream has permanently replaced her reality. The concept of possession takes hold as the modern student Han Aaron sees her soul merged with the character. She realizes with horror that she now inhabits the body of Viola, a princess destined for a bloody legacy. Overwhelmed by the situation, the girl despairs at being the adopted daughter of the world's most iron-blooded duke. Han Aaron tells herself to focus and stay alert, knowing that survival depends on keeping her composure during crisis. Looking out the window, she begins forming a survival strategy instead of succumbing to grief over her lost life. She determines that her first mission is to force the ruthless family to fully accept her as a Bella too. By changing the novel's course and promoting the first princess as successor, she hopes to secure her own safety. If she can successfully alter the succession, the dangerous missions intended for her will finally vanish from her path. Staring at the cold steel of a blade, the girl vows that she will neither kill nor be killed. She reflects on the original story's tragic end, where Viola was left entirely alone and eventually met her demise. Determined to write her own ending, she views her current situation as a fan fiction she must craft to survive. Though she worries that a single wrong move could be a fatal trap, she releases a long, weary sigh. Under the light of a grand chandelier, she considers that her lingering memories are a side effect of possession. Lost in her thoughts, the girl's purple eyes reflect a sense of detachment from the world she now inhabits. Memories of her past life surface, showing classmates whispering about her living in a nursery school without parents. She recalls the heartbreaking drawings on the wall and her endless, unanswered questions about when her father would return. The promise that her father would come after midnight was never kept, leaving her waiting through hundreds of lonely nights. It wasn't until her middle school years that she could finally admit to herself that she had been completely abandoned. Driven by misery, the young girl once stood on a school rooftop, wondering if falling would bring ultimate comfort. At the ledge, terror gripped her as she realized her deep, instinctive desire to stay alive despite the pain. Happiness eventually found her through friends who celebrated her birthday, creating the family she had always longed to have. Her old life ended quietly as she drifted off while studying in college, only to wake in a novel. Now resting on a plush sofa, she accepts that she has truly been reborn into this fictional world's body. She finds hope in the fact that this life provides her with a father and a family, unlike before. With a determined kick of her legs, she resolves to do her best and make the most of this opportunity. The scene concludes as she begins the arduous task of recalling every crucial detail from the original novel's story. An ornate frame emphasizes the girl's terrifying ability to perfectly mask her murderous intent from others. The purple-haired butler, Jenin, bows respectfully to Viola while announcing he will provide her first formal order. Looking unimpressed, the purple-haired girl stares back at the butler with a gaze of cold, silent authority. Jenin realizes the girl already knows her role perfectly, prompting him to ask for her first command instead. Viola demands a quill and poison red frog, shocking the butler with her knowledge of the deadly neurotoxin. A close-up of Viola's purple eyes reveals her calculating thoughts as she notices the butler's growing intrigue. Standing tall, the girl questions the butler about his specific duties within the ruthless family's hierarchy. Viola commands Jenin to remain loyal to his role of assisting her before turning her back on him. Sweat beads on Jenin's face as he realizes the girl's commanding presence perfectly mirrors the terrifying Bella 2 style. A flashback reveals Jenin's arrival, while Viola panics internally about the butler's intimidatingly perfect and timely service. Jenin presents the requested black quill and a small vial of red poison, anticipating her every possible need. Holding the items, Viola coolly dismisses the butler, telling him he can leave her presence for the moment. The small girl walks across the vast marble floor of the grand hall, clutching her newly acquired tools. Narrative frames describe the fifth Prince Vysen as an innocent-looking but heartless killing machine who feels no guilt. An elegant floral frame announces that the fateful meeting with the dangerous Vysen will officially happen tomorrow. Viola's small hand holds the vial of red frog poison against a soft, sparkling pink background. Seated on her sofa, the purple-haired girl examines the poison, wondering if it will be effective for her plans. Bright floral imagery marks a transition as the story prepares to introduce a new rival into Viola's life. The scene shifts to the towering, blue-tinted spires of the winter castle reaching toward a clear, bright sky. Maids watch from the shadows as Viola walks down the corridor, her footsteps echoing through the silent mansion. Viola, now dressed in a vibrant red gown, walks toward a high-stakes encounter with a promising young killer. Looking determined, the girl prepares herself to face the rival who could end her life if she wavers. Framed by dark patterns, the narration warns that relaxing for even a second in front of Vysen is fatal. A sharp knock sounds at the door as a maid announces the arrival of the young master, Vysen. The heavy doors creak open to reveal a blonde-haired boy standing in the bright light of the doorway. A decorative brown frame officially introduces the newcomer as Vysen Vela II, the 8-year-old fifth-generation young master. Standing confidently with his hands in his pockets, Vysen's presence is framed by delicate blue flowers. Looking down at the seated girl, the blonde boy warns Viola not to be surprised by his appearance. A close-up of the boy's face shows him preparing to deliver a harsh, prideful insult to his new sister.
Vysen bluntly rejects Viola, claiming he doesn't want her as a sister while looking at her with disdain.
Viola remains calm, secretly knowing from her knowledge of the novel that his words hide his true feelings.
A memory shows the young blonde boy crying, lamenting that he is the only one without a younger sibling.
Wah! Visin cheers with joy upon hearing he is getting a sister, rushing off to find his mother.
A red-haired woman in a dark blue gown coldly tells Visin that the girl doesn't deserve their blood.
The mother describes Viola as a mere sacrifice, while the young boy asks if he can still meet her.
Smirking, the red-haired woman encourages Visin to meet the girl and remind her that she does not belong. Determined to follow his mother's lead, the blonde boy vows to show Viola how scary he can be. A vision of the original novel's timeline shows Viola and Visin stabbing one another during a brutal fight. Viola resolves to break this cycle of violence and change the nature of their relationship for good.
Haha! The purple-haired girl laughs suddenly, catching Visin completely off guard with her unexpected amusement.
Sipping her tea with a smirk, Viola challenges the boy's pride by questioning what happens if she isn't his sister. Visin freezes in confusion, his red eyes wide as he struggles to process her lack of fear or anger. Pointing a finger at her, the boy shouts that she is just a sacrifice, hoping for a reaction. A whimsical diagram illustrates the boy's imaginary flow, contrasting his expected intimidation with the disappointing reality of her boredom. Frustrated, Visin demands to know why she isn't angry, calling her an idiot for not realizing she's being ignored. The blonde boy continues his tirade, insisting that his insults should have provoked a much more violent response. Visin's eyes sparkle with anticipation as he wonders if the girl is finally preparing to attack him.
Thump! A quill pen suddenly flies through the air and embeds itself deeply into the wall behind Visin.
Viola stands with a dark, terrifying aura, her shadow looming as she reveals a glimpse of her true skill. Instead of being afraid, Visin is awestruck, whispering, "Wow," with starry eyes at the girl's impressive and sudden display. Viola maintains a cold exterior, while a chibi Visin acknowledges her impressive throwing skills and hidden intelligence. Internally, Viola panics, realizing her attempt to intimidate Visin nearly resulted in him losing an eye. Touching the faint scratch on his cheek, the blonde-haired boy asks if she was delivering a warning. Visin laughs with dark delight, officially labeling her a sacrifice as Viola offers a serene, practiced smile. While Visin cheers about her terrifying warning, Viola slumps onto the sofa, exhausted by the intense mental strain. Surrounded by roses, the young master spreads his arms wide, looking unexpectedly thrilled by his sister's lethality. Viola suppresses an urge to hug the boy back, finding his childish excitement genuinely adorable despite the circumstances. Narrative text warns that a Velatu hug is actually a cold calculation used to identify an opponent's physical weaknesses. With sparkling red eyes and a sweet smile, Visin approaches Viola to offer her a seemingly friendly hug. Viola accepts the embrace, determining that they can find a way to coexist within this dangerous family dynamic. Visin laughs brightly while holding her, declaring his sudden affection for his new sister. The hug turns ominous as Visin wonders which of them will eventually prove more skilled at killing. Viola realizes she must recruit Visin as an ally to avoid her tragic fate in the original novel. A tight squeeze makes Viola uncomfortable, wondering why the boy refuses to release her from the suffocating hug. Looking over the boy's shoulder, Viola politely asks young Master Visin to let go of her. The purple-haired butler, Jenin, suddenly appears and introduces himself as the servant assigned to the princess. Jenin informs the confused blonde boy that the Duke has granted him a 10-day period for his visit. The butler firmly requests that Visin stop touching the princess and step aside for the duration of his stay. Visin stubbornly maintains his grip on Viola, refusing the butler's polite demand to move away from her. Jenin calmly states he will report the disobedience to the Duke, reminding them he is her assigned watcher. Viola's eyes widen in alarm as she realizes her every move is being monitored and reported to the Duke. When questioned about his lack of secrecy, Jenin nonchalantly admits he wasn't ordered to keep his role hidden.
Vissen glares at the butler with intense hostility, clearly displeased by the interruption of his physical analysis.
Tsk! Releasing her with a frustrated sound, the boy finally steps back from the surprised girl. Sighing in defeat, Vissen agrees to leave the room, his earlier momentum completely halted by the butler's presence. Before departing, Vissen places a hand on Viola's shoulder with a smug, knowing smirk. A sudden, sharp sound precedes Vissen losing his balance and stumbling forward toward the floor. The blonde boy lies dazed on the ground, completely confused by his sudden lack of physical coordination. With swirling eyes, Vissen hallucinates a world in full bloom as the neurotoxin begins to take full effect. As Vissen drifts into a drug-induced daze, Viola coldly commands Jenin to remove the boy from her room. Viola notes the poison has spread successfully as a maid carries the incoherent Vissen away from the scene. Jenin examines the poisoned quill, impressed by the princess's ruthlessly creative way of welcoming her rival.
The butler declares this a perfect victory, noting that Vissen would have died had she intended to kill. Jenin questions if her previous request for the quill and poison was specifically planned for this exact encounter.
Viola confirms his suspicion with a smile, while internally begging him not to probe into her mysterious knowledge. Holding the quill, Jenin stares at the princess with a look of deep, calculating curiosity. A tense silence follows as Viola wonders if her butler has finally seen through her facade.
Jenin asks if he may pose a single question to the girl as she stands amidst the luxurious room.
Viola agrees to answer him, provided his question is worth her time and attention.
Dropping to one knee, the butler maintains his respectful posture while holding the dark quill pen.
Jenin remains kneeling, his gaze fixed on the small girl who continues to surprise him with her insight. Viola panics, realizing she miscalculated by assuming he was only asking about the physical preparations.
Jenin explains that a hug is a strategic tool for analyzing muscle growth and spotting an opponent's vulnerabilities.
A sinister red aura illustrates how the hug allowed for a detailed analysis of skin thickness and arm length. Viola realizes with a start that Vissen was likely using the same lethal technique against her during their embrace. The butler is internally shocked that a girl from the slums could possess such advanced knowledge of family secrets. Smiling with clear eyes, Jenin accepts her silence and states that her mysterious knowledge isn't a problem. Jenin praises her confidence before suddenly drawing a small, sharp blade from his formal attire. The butler kneels before Viola, pointing the needle-like blade toward her as flowers frame the unusual scene. With a smooth motion, Jenin hides the weapon back into his sleeve, maintaining his perfect, subservient composure. Viola looks on with concern as Jenin mentions reporting his findings directly to the Duke.
Jenin reveals he possesses information regarding the princess's true potential and hands her a small note. Taking the paper, the purple-haired girl realizes this deviation from the original novel's timeline is completely unexpected. Reading the note, she contemplates the words dominance and ambition, wondering about the fervor mentioned within the text.
Jenin explains that her calculated actions during the meeting with Vissen have proven she possesses extraordinary qualities. The butler bows deeply, declaring his intention to do his absolute best to make Viola the next Duke. Internally, Viola screams in terror at the thought of becoming Duke, preferring to simply stay alive and safe. Jenin is captivated by her intense, shining eyes, mistaking her panicked focus for a sign of noble determination. Overcome with comedic emotion, the purple-haired butler weeps at finding such a worthy master after so long. As Jenin vows to work even harder, Viola watches him with a silent, awkward sweat drop of complete confusion. Determined to stick to her plans, she shakes off her headache and addresses Jenin with a sharp command.
Viola demands the family genealogy, seeking information on the Vela II bloodline, framed by elegant lilies and a lion crest.
In a flashback, the red-haired mother stands over Vissen, asking the young boy for his thoughts on Viola. Vissen looks up with his red eyes,
admitting that he finds the new girl to be very intriguing.
The mother demands Visin trample his enemy, leading the boy to submissively apologize for his earlier lack of aggression.
She coldly stares down at him, forcing Visin to declare that he must embrace his anger toward the girl. Smirking with dark intent, the mother offers to prepare the whip to teach her son a lesson in ruthlessness. A hand grips the handle of a whip, blood seeping from the skin as a sinister aura fills the room.
Visin collapses to his knees in silence, dreading the impending punishment from the woman standing over him.
The whip lashes through the air with a sharp sound as the mother begins the brutal training session.
Suffering under the strike, the blonde-haired boy is left broken and weeping in the shadows of the mansion. Back in the present, Viola exhales a long breath while lying down, exhausted by the day's constant political maneuvering.
She reflects on the successful day, despite the chaotic presence of her butler and her blonde-haired rival.
A decorative frame heralds the coming of the future Vela 2, highlighting the high stakes of her new life.
Viola's eyes narrow with a cold, focused intensity as she mentally prepares for the next phase of her survival.
A silhouette shows the girl caught in a web of lethal red lines, illustrating her fear of failure.
Feeling the weight of her situation, the purple-haired girl lets out a tired groan while surrounded by swirling, dark patterns. Viola realizes Visin is currently being punished and suspects his mother's hands were burned by the magical whip's handle.
Narration confirms she has never met Visin's mother, yet she witnesses the boy being struck by the bloodied rod.
When Jenin questions her, Viola sits up on her bed and declares she has an important place to visit. She resolves to recruit Visin and eventually everyone in the household to her side to ensure her own survival. Curled on the floor, Visin cries in his room, blaming himself for his mother's injuries during his beating.
Jenin leads Viola through the corridors, arriving at the large, ornate wooden doors of the Fifth Master's private chambers.
Standing before the entrance, the purple-haired girl politely asks her butler to open the heavy doors for her.
A sharp creak sounds as Viola enters, detecting the metallic smell of blood and the heavy atmosphere of Visin's suffering. Visin's butler, a man with blue hair and glasses, informs Jenin that the young master refuses all visitors.
The blue-haired butler firmly requests they leave, while Viola watches him with a calculating, half-lidded gaze.
Jenin insists that the princess must meet Master Visin, but the other butler remains unmoved by the demand.
Glaring with intense hostility, the blue-haired butler commands Jenin to shut his mouth and step back immediately.
Unfazed by the tension, Viola asks Jenin what their next move should be to gain entry into the room.
She questions Jenin's ability to suppress the other butler, noting that all high-ranking servants in the family are formidable.
Jenin draws a sharp blade, confidently stating there is nothing he cannot handle for the sake of his princess.
He points the knife at the blue-haired butler, who warns him about the consequences of breaking the castle's rules.
Jenin's eyes sharpen as he admits the only reason he hasn't stopped the man yet is because of those rules. Realizing the lethal intent hidden behind Jenin's smile, Viola decides she needs to hurry and finish her business.
Jenin keeps the butler at bay with his weapon, while Viola calmly walks past them into the darkened room. Her shoes click against the stone floor as she moves with purposeful, steady steps toward her wounded rival. Walking deeper into the gloom, Viola's small figure is framed by the vast, shadowy expanse of Visin's quarters. Chibi versions of the butlers analyze her movement, impressed by her ability to strike in the exact gap of time.
The blue-haired butler smiles, congratulating Jenin on serving a master who truly embodies the virtues of the Velatu family. The blue-haired butler asks Jenin if he will serve the princess sincerely, and Jenin admits he will for now. Surrounded by roses and lions, a silhouette of Viola illustrates her destiny as a ruthless controller of poison.
Jenin praises the girl's reasonable scolding and perfect adaptation, though the blue-haired butler remains skeptical of her progress.
The purple-haired butler believes her success is possible through innate talent and her sharp perception of her new reality.
Jenin recalls Viola predicting Vison's punishment.
Viola explains her concern. A decorative frame emphasizes that Jenin has become an indispensable character in the survival story of Viola Velato.
Smirking with confidence, the princess fully embraces her identity and position within the dangerous and powerful Velato family line. Jenin expresses excitement for her future, unaware that she only used her full name out of habitual reader instinct.
Walking through the dark mansion, the purple-haired girl worries that her butler might be laughing at her behind her back.
Viola stands in the center of the massive, luxurious living room, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the estate.
Her purple eyes narrow as she suddenly spots a specific detail that matches the descriptions from the original novel.
Entering the shadowed room, Viola discovers the blonde hair. Resolving to take action, the girl steps forward across the carpeted floor, determined to win over her young rival. Vison looks up with tearful red eyes as Viola bluntly questions his current pathetic and battered state of health. Sitting near him, the purple-haired girl asks if he was severely beaten, noting the visible blood on his shirt. Viola thoughtfully considers the pain caused by the magical whip, while Vison remains curled up in a defensive posture. Vison defends his mother's actions, claiming she is also in pain, and that his punishment was justified by his failure.
The girl questions the logic of his guilt as the broken boy continues to weep over his perceived shortcomings.
Trying to mask his pain, Vison forces a tearful smile and declares himself a villain who deserved his mother's wrath. Viola is internally horrified by the boy's distorted worldview, realizing this family's cruelty goes beyond what she imagined. Reaching out toward him, she assures the nervous boy that she has no intention of stabbing him right now. With a cold, menacing aura, Viola vows that one day she will make him crawl beneath her feet like a dog. To her absolute confusion, the blonde-haired boy looks up at her with sparkling eyes of pure, unadulterated joy. Viola clarifies that she finds no pleasure in breaking someone who is already shattered, her gaze turning intensely focused. Vison laughs with relief, happy that she didn't simply abandon him while the girl watches his strange reaction carefully. Realizing the tragedy of an 8-year-old child suffering this much, Vison asks if she is preparing acid or poison, but the girl remains silent as she pulls out a jar. The boy's eyes widen in shock as a sudden, unexpected sensation catches him completely off guard during their meeting. Viola roughly applies. Vison asks what kind of poison she is using, only to be told it is actually healing ointment. Standing over him, Viola commands him to recover quickly so she can properly dominate him as her future subordinate.
She gives him a chilling smile, promising that he will feel death if he continues to be so weak.
While Vison finds her behavior weird, Viola internally panics and wonders if her villainous acting was too over the top. The blonde boy points toward his chest, admitting that he feels a strange stinging sensation after her unexpected kindness. A close-up of his messy blonde hair captures a brief moment of quiet as the boy processes his complex emotions. Tears stream down Vison's face again as he clutches his chest, overwhelmed by a feeling he cannot quite name. Confused by his own heart, the boy wonders why he feels so happy while he is simultaneously crying in pain. Vison laughs through his tears, jokingly asking if she poisoned him because of how effective her medicinal treatment feels. The boy looks down at the floor, the word, however, hanging in the air as he reevaluates the girl before him. Surrounded by white flowers, Vison asks if the girl is blushing because she also accidentally poisoned herself during the process. The blonde boy continues to tease her with a smile, finding the entire situation much more amusing than his beating. Vison admits he is disappointed she saw him cry, and asks the princess if she ever weeps when she feels sad. Viola looks down at him with a deadpan expression, stating she has no reason to be sad since she wasn't hit. The boy is stunned into silence by her logical but cold dismissal of the emotional weight of his recent suffering.
Viola explains that his sadness stems from the physical coercion that broke the absolute laws of the Winter City's rules.
A dark decree appears, stating that all children under 10 must be protected, and those who break this law must die. In a chilling memory, Vicen stands before his mother with a knife, declaring his intent to kill her for her crimes.
The red-haired mother smirks, telling her son that he must consume her power to become a true, worthy monarch.
A sinister smile remains in the darkness, marking the beginning of a cycle of ruthlessness within the Twisted family.
In a violent memory, the blonde-haired boy swings a dagger with a desperate, guttural cry as his red eyes flare with rage.
Viola watches the scene internally, noting that Vicen truly never wished to commit the crime of killing his own mother. Her attention is drawn to her own shoes as she realizes that no one in this novel behaves like a normal person. Vicen hunches over in the dim light, finally admitting that the fault for their suffering lies entirely with his mother's actions. Resolute, the purple-haired girl decides she will intervene to change the original plot and prevent Vicen from ever becoming a murderer. Narration explains that over time, the expectation of killing his mother became an unbearable pressure that defied the laws of the Winter City. The boy remains motionless on the floor, his silence reflecting the heavy emotional burden of his tragic and twisted destiny. Vicen's red eyes widen in shock as he finally acknowledges the princess, his voice trembling slightly as he says her name. Viola is startled to realize that his mother gave him a specific mission that deviates significantly from the events of the original novel. To her absolute shock, the boy smiles brightly amidst a flurry of flowers, cheerfully asking if they can play together now. She contrasts this innocent request with the memory of the original Villainess Vicen, who only sought to compete and destroy her. Looking around the luxurious bedroom, the girl wonders who would find this strange and sudden change in the boy's behavior interesting. Vicen continues to beam with a cute, sparkling expression, leaving the purple-haired girl staring at him in a state of utter disbelief. Covering her mouth, Viola warns herself not to be deceived by his outward appearance, as he is a dangerous biological weapon. Standing before the window, she realizes this moment is a pivotal turning point for her life as the character known as Viola. A peaceful sky filled with white flowers marks a transition in the story, questioning if this is the first time things have changed.
Viola stands in her travel cloak while mentally reviewing combat notes about the stamina-draining nature of using heavy axes in close range.
Jenin presents a gleaming dagger, calmly explaining that the blade is coated in a lethal poison that requires extreme care. The purple-haired butler maintains a pleasant smile while chillingly remarking that a single scratch from the blade would send anyone to heaven. Looking down at the weapon, the girl decides she has no use for such deadly toxins because their effects are far too absolute. She smirks with cold confidence, explaining that she prefers to avoid using poison while on the move because one strike is enough. Jenin hands the weapon over and wishes her luck on her upcoming mission, while Viola reacts with a confused and hesitant expression. The butler clarifies that while he will accompany her, he cannot offer direct assistance since this task belongs solely to the princess. Gripping the small dagger, the purple-haired girl lets out a quiet sigh as she prepares herself for the dangerous challenge ahead. A decorative map reveals her objective, a mission to travel to Mount Beto and destroy a small, notorious group of bandits. Viola skeptically considers the difficulty of an 8-year-old child being expected to eliminate a band of beastly and dangerous mountain criminals. She spots the silhouette of a black-haired boy with a bow, sensing that this mysterious figure is crucial to her survival plan. Backstory reveals that the novel's male protagonist, Tundra, was abandoned by his mother at a young age because she couldn't handle poverty. Left behind with his father and weak sister, the three of them struggled to survive as the last remaining members of the Tundras. Sparkling text emphasizes that for this boy, his family was the only treasure he possessed in the harsh and unforgiving world. From the age of 6, Tundra's hunting skills improved until he could finally provide enough food for his family to eat regularly.
He encouraged his sister, promising that his success as a hunter would eventually pay for her treatment at the sacred temple.
Highlighting his hope, the narration notes that the young boy truly believed his dreams for a better life would one day come true.
Returning home after a successful hunt, Tundra calls out excitedly as he drags a large deer through the doorway of their hut.
A close-up of the boy shows his pride as he begins to announce that they will have a grand dinner for everyone tonight. His joy turns to horror as he finds his father's lifeless body on the floor, realizing his entire world has vanished into nothingness.
Tears stream down Tundra's face as he desperately searches the ransacked room, crying out for his sister who is nowhere to be found. Viewing the broken door and signs of a struggle, the boy realizes with a sinking heart that his sister has been kidnapped.
Slumped in shadow, the young hunter is overwhelmed by grief and despair after losing everything he worked so hard to protect. With a trembling hand, Tundra apologizes to his fallen father and resolves to leave immediately to track down the people who took her. Stepping out of the dark hut into the light, the boy prepares his bow, fueled by a singular and desperate need to find his sister.
For 3 grueling days, he tracks the kidnappers through the dense valley, following a trail of clues that leads him deep into the woods.
Tundra spots a wooden watchtower in the distance, his eyes narrowing with intensity as he realizes his sister is likely held captive there. A horse-drawn carriage gallops along a dirt path, carrying Viola and her companions toward the same dangerous mountain range. Looking out the window, the purple-haired girl wonders how Tundra will actually look in person compared to the descriptions in the novel. Vissen lets out a tired yawn, complaining about the carriage ride and stating that riding a horse would have been much more fun. The blonde boy stands up suddenly and demands to know if she truly fails to recognize him as her older brother. An impactful notification appears, reminding everyone that despite her sophisticated behavior, Viola is currently only 7 years old. A similar notification confirms that Vissen is also just a child, standing at only 8 years of age despite his dangerous reputation. Vissen looks at her with expectant, sparkling eyes and asks her to call him brother, while Viola finds his request incredibly childish. Viola remains silent as a chilling claim of killing over 10,000 people hangs heavy in the air.
The black carriage rumbles through the lush forest, while a passenger suggests switching to horseback for more fun.
Internal thoughts reflect on the necessity of acting like a child while acknowledging the lethal dangers of this training.
Vissen beams with joy after Viola offers him the first chance to play his game during their journey.
Viola instructs the blonde boy to take the lead in his own game, leaving him feeling slightly flustered. Pointing upward, the purple-haired girl warns Vissen not to push himself too hard as they approach their destination. Enveloped by dark purple roses, Viola offers a sinister smile, promising to help if he grows too exhausted. Vissen eagerly declares he will handle everything himself, leaving Viola impressed by how smoothly her manipulation worked.
The 2 children finally arrive at their destination, both sporting determined expressions as they prepare to step out.
Jenin points toward a distant watchtower, explaining that the narrow mountain path requires them to continue on foot. Vissen leaps from the carriage with confident shout, while Viola and her butler prepare for the hike ahead.
The scene reveals a cluster of dilapidated wooden huts, abandoned and silent within the dense, shadowed mountain valley.
Spinning his dagger with practiced ease, Vissen questions the lack of guards at the mountain watchtower. The blonde boy's smile fades as he catches the scent of blood near a recently disturbed and excavated grave.
Narration expresses deep outrage over the cruelty of a world where even young children are not spared from violence.
Viola's expression darkens as she realizes Tundra's family was ruthlessly deceived by the very people they trusted. Reaching a wooden hut, Vissen knocks firmly and calls out to see if anyone is still alive inside. A soft sound catches the boy's attention,
causing him to glance back toward Viola with a wary, alert expression.
Noticing the door is slightly ajar, the group finds fresh traces indicating someone recently entered the building.
Viola uses a diagram to explain a tactical maneuver for gaining extra time during a potential escape. The girl deduces that Tundra arrived seeking his sister, only to find her body in the grave they discovered. Looking up at the watchtower, they realized the guards were likely eliminated to facilitate a silent, stealthy infiltration.
Visin suggests a battle has already occurred, which would explain the lingering metallic smell of blood in the air.
A sudden sound of footsteps prompts Viola to dash forward, fearing someone has already completed her mission.
Jenin asks if a second explanation is needed, but the other butler stoically declines as they follow the princess.
Viola confidently tells her attendants to simply accept her superior analytical skills as they move through the camp.
The purple-haired butler stands in the center of the camp, noting they have reached Visin Master's current location. Pausing at the entrance of a building, Viola asks the butler if he intends to follow her inside.
She explains finding small footprints, concluding that a skilled 12-year-old child like Tundra is currently hunting for revenge. As they walk through the ruins, Viola considers the possibility that Tundra may have already perished in his quest. A subtle, knowing smile crosses the girl's face as she realizes the boy is actually still alive. Jenin reflects on the nature of revenge, noting that true satisfaction requires making a mess of the enemy's heart. Internal text marvels at the girl's profound perception, wondering if she is hinting at something deeper than mere strategy.
While the butler vows to help her succeed, Viola feels a sudden chill, wondering why the atmosphere feels so cold.
A shadow looms over a child hiding in the darkness, marking the moment their paths finally and inevitably cross. Viola's eyes widen in absolute shock as she catches her first glimpse of the boy hiding in the shadows. A black-haired boy with a dirt-smudged face stares back with weary, cautious eyes, his guard completely up. Ornate illustrations celebrate the series' success, featuring Viola in royal attire surrounded by her complicated and dangerous family. Stunned into silence, the purple-haired girl realizes the boy before her is an exact match for someone she knew. Clutching a dagger with trembling hands, the boy warns them to stay back or he will be forced to strike.
Viola ignores the threat and leans in close, wondering if this detail will also match her lingering memories.
She pulls back his clothing to reveal 3 distinct dots arranged in a triangle on the boy's calf. Flashbacks of a past life flood her mind as she stares at the birthmark she remembers so vividly. In another life, a young girl happily identifies her older brother by the unique marks on his feet. Memories recall how her Oppa was her strongest support after they were both abandoned at a lonely orphanage. The 2 children from her past share a joyful moment together while holding an important document at the orphanage. A glowing memory captures the overwhelming realization of her deep affection for the boy who protected her. The girl waited for him to return, but he never came, forcing her to bury her love deep inside. Overwhelmed by the shocking reunion, Viola clutches the boy's leg and cries out to him from her past life. The princess stares at the black-haired boy in a daze, her mind reeling from the impossible discovery of her brother. Tundra cautiously asks Viola if she is the bandit leader's daughter as he keeps his guard up. A wave of dizziness washes over Viola as her vision blurs and the atmosphere grows heavy and distorted. Tundra demands an answer while Viola's eyes begin to fade, her focus slipping away into a dark haze. An oppressive shadow looms over the small girl as a sinister energy approaches, heralding an impending change. Jenin's eyes widen in surprise as he senses a sudden and dramatic shift in the princess's presence. Tundra pins Viola down and holds a knife to her throat, threatening her to reveal the leader's location. Viola's eyes glow with a chilling crimson light, her expression turning cold and lethal despite the blade at her neck. Jenin watches with a knowing smile,
anticipating that Viola will finally unleash her true, dangerous self upon the boy.
Caught off guard, Tundra flinches as Viola's hand moves with startling speed, disrupting his attempt to restrain her. With a powerful and sudden strike, Viola sends Tundra flying backward across the room as he groans in pain.
The purple-haired girl pins Tundra to the floor with her boot, looking down at him with a predatory gaze.
Viola smiles sinisterly as her eyes burn red, wondering why her body feels so different and powerful in this moment.
A sharp command echoes for Tundra to subdue Viola quickly, but the boy remains trapped under her firm grip.
Tundra's hand goes limp as he loses the will to fight, causing Viola to wonder why he surrendered so easily. Looking at the defeated boy, Viola recalls her own past life's despair and recognizes the same look in his eyes. Sitting atop the boy, Viola holds the dagger and warns him never to use that look with her brother's face. Tundra tries to move again, prompting Viola to tighten her hold as she senses his brief flicker of renewed resistance.
Genin praises the princess's neat skills, his calm expression contrasting with the violence of the struggle on the floor.
Veesen sighs behind the butlers, dismissively claiming that he could perform a similar feat if he were the one fighting. Viola considers if her erratic behavior is a side effect of possession, suspecting the original Viola's personality is resurfacing. Stepping onto Tundra's back, the girl feels relieved that she regained her composure before things went too far.
A dark resolve fills Viola as she looks at the boy. Tundra lies bound on the floor, his wrists and ankles secured by glowing blue magical chains.
Genin asks for instructions on the captive, while Viola sits regally in her chair, demanding he be presented beautifully. The purple-haired butler uses magic to manipulate the chains, confirming his understanding of the princess's cruel aesthetic request. Tundra is suspended in the air by glowing shackles, looking utterly defeated as he hangs before the young princess. Dismissing her butler, Viola remains in the room while Genin curiously asks about her plans for the captive hunter. Framed by dark roses, Viola's sinister smile deepens as she expresses her intent to thoroughly train her new acquisition. The magical chains pulse with blue energy, keeping Tundra hoisted and helpless in the center of the lavish room.
Viola's eyes gleam with a mixture of malice and obsession as she prepares to begin the boy's education.
Genin bows respectfully, agreeing to turn a blind eye to her methods despite the strict rules of the city.
The purple-haired girl leans forward, her gaze fixed on the boy as she ponders her next move in this game.
Internal conflict plagues Viola as she realizes her original plan to save him is clashing with her current role. Thinking of her past brother, Viola wonders if she can truly bring herself to harm someone with his face. Startled by a sudden movement from Tundra, Viola's eyes widen as she sits stiffly in her ornate chair. Tundra looks down through his mask, his voice soft and hesitant as he tries to speak to his captor. Suddenly filled with rage, Tundra screams that he will kill her, his body straining violently against the magical chains. Viola coldly tells him to listen carefully, reminding herself that despite his appearance, this boy is not her brother. She chides Tundra for his recklessness, pointing out that his impulsive actions almost caused his own death in the forest. A vision of Tundra's failure plays out, highlighting how he hid in fear without confirming his sister's true fate. Viola mocks his cowardice, questioning if he truly intended to give up everything when things became difficult. Tundra is stunned into silence as Viola reveals the shocking truth that she used to be an orphan just like him. Relaxing in her chair, Viola admits her background, explaining her adoption into the Velatu family to gain his trust. Placing a hand on her chest, she emphasizes her shared trauma, claiming that she understands his pain better than anyone. Tears well up in Tundra's eyes as he looks at her, his anger replaced by a vulnerable sense of hope. Viola commands him to be calm and recognize her as his savior and the one who facilitated his revenge. She pressures him to make a choice, noting that he knows what decision is necessary for his future survival. Surrounded by bright roses, Viola offers a gentle smile, sensing that the boy has finally accepted her terms. The two sit together at the table, the tension between them replaced by a quiet, shared understanding of their situation.
Viola asks for final confirmation of his compliance, and Tundra bows his head, softly uttering his agreement.
Viola explains her adoption and isolation, noting her mother's family provides no support or protection within the house. Declaring a need for her own people, she formally selects the black-haired boy as her dedicated subordinate. Framed by white roses, she offers her hand and claims she likes how he sees the world. As they shake hands, she expresses hope that the boy will grow to become a truly great man. Internally, Viola admits her flattery was a lie. His eyes are cold and unlike her brother's warmth. She recognizes the boy is far too intelligent to trust her sudden and strange reasoning for his rescue. The black-haired boy stares back with weary eyes, his guard still firmly up despite her peaceful gesture. Recognizing his limited options, the boy asks if he must become her dog for external appearances.
Viola offers a knowing smirk, confirming that he will indeed serve as either her dog or her toy. Narrative text explains that labeling him as a toy is the only way to keep him within the estate.
Reflecting on his earlier attack, she notes that his defiance is a slight that cannot be ignored. Sitting regally, Viola asserts that the Velatu family never ignores a bite from one of their own subordinates. Viola declares the start of his training, while the boy watches her with a stoic, unreadable gaze.
A close-up of her purple eye reveals a warmth that the boy finds strangely familiar and comforting.
In a comical moment, he asks if they have met before, which she flatly and abruptly denies. She changes the subject to visiting his hut, intent on resolving his past and moving forward together. Viola plans to help bury his father, preventing the hatred that consumed him in the original story. Surprised by her generosity, the black-haired boy agrees to accompany her back to his former home. He offers a quiet thanks as he blushes, his hard exterior softening slightly at her unexpected support. Standing tall, the boy declares he is ready to face whatever trial or training she has planned. The black-haired boy bows his head, silently accepting his new life as the young princess's servant. Gripping the whip handle, Viola prepares to begin the discipline session required for their public performance. Surrounded by dark roses, she tells him to cry out beautifully while assuming a cold, villainous persona. The boy braces himself with closed eyes, prepared to endure the physical pain of her strikes. Her hand tightens on the leather as she readies herself to strike for the sake of appearances. The heavy sound of a whip cracking echoes through the lavish room as the training begins. Despite the ruthless appearance, Viola feels internally sickened by the act of harming her friend. She reminds herself that her butler is listening nearby, forcing her to hide her guilt and mercy. Suddenly, the blonde boy bursts into the room, shouting her name and interrupting the tense training session. Vicen asks if she is playing with a toy, but she insists she is merely taming her acquisition. The blonde boy's intense stare makes her wonder if he has noticed anything suspicious about her new servant. Leaning in with glowing red eyes, Vicen suspiciously asks if she plans to apply ointment to the boy. Viola looks back with a bored expression, questioning why her brother is so concerned with the treatment. Vicen warns that medicine would be fatal, while the boy stands silently with fresh whip marks. The siblings bicker over her logic, with Vicen growing increasingly frustrated by her stubborn and dismissive demeanor. Losing his temper, the blonde boy points aggressively and shouts that he will kill the captive himself. Viola dismisses his threat, asserting that how she treats her toy is her own private business. Vicen pouts and complains that she is violating their sibling relationship by keeping such secrets from him. She demands a convincing reason for his anger, causing the blonde boy to stumble over his confused feelings. Surrounded by flowers, Vicen yells that she shouldn't apply medicine to anyone besides himself.
She teases him for being jealous as the blonde boy turns and marches away while whistling. Viola calls out her disappointment in his lack of rationality, leaving Vicen completely stunned by her words. She reiterates that her actions are logical, unlike his emotional and far-fetched reactions to the situation.
Viola declares she will never apply ointment for him again, sending the blonde boy into deep shock.
Desperate to maintain her favor, Vicen quickly backpedals and tells her to apply it after all. He stalks away into the dark, muttering a childish promise to kill her once he turns 10.
Walking through the hall, the blonde boy internally questions if he truly must kill his own sister. Viola considers Vicen's strange obsession with ointment before deciding it is far too much trouble to solve.
A decorative panel marks the end of the discipline session as the tense atmosphere finally begins to dissipate. A sharp snap sounds as Viola taps her hands together, calling for her butler, Jenin, to conclude. The heavy doors creak open as the purple-haired butler, Jeno, enters and asks what the princess requires. Viola hands over the whip, ordering Jeno to dispose of it and organize the room while she rests. A soft swoosh sounds as Jeno observes her, privately assuming the captive boy must have truly bothered her. Looking toward the captive, the butler finds it hard to believe a child with such unyielding eyes collapsed.
A dark gloom creeps over Jeno as he recalls the boy's violent attempt on his precious princess's life.
Viola is visibly shaken by her. A fiery red light fills the scene as Viola recognizes Janos' words as a deadly test from the novel. Realizing she cannot show any weakness, Viola stops her retreat and coldly calls out to the purple-haired butler.
Her eyes narrow with chilling resolve as she commands the butler to follow her immediately into the hallway.
A sharp slap echoes through the corridor as Viola strikes Jeno, leaving him stunned and blushing from the impact. Framed by purple roses, Viola scolds him for making her feel dirty after being forced to hit him.
Jeno kneels and offers his own arm as an apology, but Viola dismissively rejects his extreme and unnecessary gesture.
Entwined in thorns, the butler offers his life, but she bluntly reminds him he would be useless dead.
Standing above him, the princess sternly tells her butler to think twice before offering such irrational nonsense again. Jeno watches her walk away, deeply impressed by the incredible moderation and reason she shows at age 7. His face throbs as Jeno realizes he only survived her strike by using mana to protect his features. A flashback shows a pen crashing into a wall, a reminder of her raw mana talent during her childhood.
Surrounded by a magical crest, Viola's innate talent for manipulating mana is hailed as truly amazing and rare.
The butler's eyes widen in surprise as Viola declares him her only truly loyal subordinate in the house. Glistening sparkles fill the air as she reaffirms their bond, further cementing his absolute lifelong devotion to her. Bowing his head with a grateful smile, Jeno thanks her, noting her kindness is unlike any typical Velatu.
Turning back to him, Viola stands with a stoic expression, waiting for him to finish his formal address.
A heavy thud sounds as Jeno declares his wish for her to eventually dominate the entire Velatu family. Viola offers a faint smirk, internally exasperated that everyone in this family is completely out of their minds.